Hey, with your evening story channel, I post new interesting stories every day. Subscribe and click the bell to not miss it. Adriana made herself another cup of coffee and returned to the table where copies of the documents were spread out. She wanted to look at all of them today. When she finished studying the papers, the woman smiled contentedly. Well, everything seems to be in order. Tomorrow would be the deciding day. Sighing, Adriana sank into her memories. Just 7 months ago she was, as she thought, a happy woman and a beloved wife. But then tragedy struck. Adriana almost died in a fire that occurred in her and her husband's country house. The only thing that saved her was that she was awake. It was already 2 a.m. and she was still turning in bed and sleepless. How could I forget to buy my pills? Adriana thought. The thing is that recently the woman had problems with sleep, and she almost constantly took sleeping pills. After that, Adriana usually slept like a dead woman for 8 to 9 hours. That night, she suddenly smelled a strong odor of burning. Adriana was frightened, left the bedroom, went to the stairs, and saw that the fire was already blazing on the first floor of the house, panic-stricken. The woman quickly called her husband and the emergency services. Michael did not answer. He was in one of the nightclubs belonging to their family and could simply not hear the call. Rescue workers, on the other hand, responded quickly. Adriana had just started making ropes out of sheets to get out through the second-floor balcony. How did the EMTs arrive? All services usually responded very quickly to calls to the rich suburban village, so the woman only got off with a minor scare. But she was still hospitalized for a few days to examine and help overcome the effects of shock. Husband Michael rushed to the hospital early in the morning with a huge bouquet of flowers. My girl, how could it be? How could I be without you? I almost went crazy when I found out. I rushed over here, but they wouldn't let me in until you woke up. Michael was very worried. Adriana was even a little pleased by her husband's reaction. Their relationship hadn't been smooth sailing in recent years. First of all, Adriana couldn't get pregnant, and they had been married for 10 years, and they were both in their 30s. Secondly, the family was constantly at odds over work. Adriana and Michael owned 3 nightclubs. They were the trendiest venues in their city with super modern design and expensive sound. They regularly invited celebrities to the clubs, organized concerts and DJ sets. The money to develop the business was initially given by Adriana. Her father died when the girl was 16 years old. He left his daughter a solid capital. Her mother gave Adriana half of her share of the inheritance. She was still quite a young woman. A few years later, she married a successful businessman and went to live with him in another city. Adriana first opened a small bar with live music. Having got acquainted with Michael, the girl was conquered by his intelligence and energy. Michael didn't have much money, but there was a great business sense. During the years of their life together, they opened 3 thriving clubs. Only Michael was always short of money. He wanted to sell drugs in their clubs, always telling Adriana that the local mafia was pressuring him. In their port city, the drug trade was on the up and up, and the 3 best clubs in town didn't sell drugs. Adriana was adamantly against any drugs and forbade not only selling them in the club, but also bringing them in and to sell them outside the club. The guards were very strict about this. When Adriana once saw a girl sniffing something in the restroom, she fired the entire security shift. After that, it never happened again. But Michael could not accept it and periodically returned to the unpleasant conversation. But now he was genuinely upset. Adriana, I told you, why are you alone in that house at night? There's an apartment in town. I love nature. You know that. Adriana smiled. That the house is very bad. And anyway, what was the fire from? The first floor needs to be repaired. It's not a big deal. It looks like a short circuit. I'll find out more. Okay, sweetheart, you rest, and I'll be on my way. And Michael kissed his wife tenderly. On the second day, Adriana was tired of being in the hospital. She felt good, and she wanted to go home and work. She was used to getting fully into the work of the clubs. The woman persuaded the attending doctor to let her go on her own responsibility. She decided not to call her husband. Now I'll rest a little, and then I'll surprise Michael with a romantic dinner, she thought. At home, Adriana took a long soak in the bathtub, and then she gladly lay down on her favorite and comfortable bed. She didn't even notice how she dozed off. She woke up to her husband's voice coming from the living room. "Oh, Michael, already at home, the surprise will not work," thought Adriana. But then she heard a woman's voice as well. With surprise, she realized that Michael was talking to her friend Betty. Betty was a famous dancer in their town. She was no longer a dancer, but ran a show ballet that performed at parties, concerts, and clubs. Adriana often invited Betty's ballet to their clubs, and over time she and Betty became very close friends. The temperamental, bright Betty, with her luxurious black curls, huge gypsy eyes, and feline grace, had incredible charm. Adriana often wondered why her friend did not marry. After all, she had plenty of admirers. Betty separated from her first husband 14 years ago, a couple of years after her son was born. Adriana was about to get up and go out into the living room when she heard Betty's voice. "But I still don't understand how you could have screwed up like that. I thought you said she'd be asleep by 2 o'clock. "How would I know that?" Michael said angrily. "I'm shocked myself. And the lizard's out there too. He's already prepared a big shipment of drugs for our clubs. And there's another glitch. I'm so sick of that dumb bitch with her idiotic principles. How am I sick of her? Betty. Honey, pour me some whiskey on the rocks. I've been so nervous today. Good thing she's in the hospital. I can't bear to smile at her and talk about pregnancy and how to conceive. Oh, I'm so sick of her. I didn't realize Adriana was such a bore when I married her. All she has on her mind is that stupid baby. It's a good thing you've got a grown-up son, and you won't bother me with it. I don't want kids at all. I just want to live my life and spoil my girl, don't I, love? Betty? Well, of course, sweetheart, you're a goddess to me. Wait till we start selling drugs through clubs. We're going to make a fortune. That's what Lizard says. It's mostly young kids that come to our clubs. It's easy to get them hooked on drugs, and then it's a chain reaction. Yes, Michael, you and I are going to be fabulously rich, exclaimed Betty. Come on, kiss your baby. Adriana lay under the blanket, neither alive nor dead. She couldn't believe what she'd heard. Maybe she'd fallen asleep, and this was just a nightmare. The woman pinched her arm. No, this was all real. Her husband is her friend. How can this be? It's painful and disgusting, and it seems they want to do something bad to her. And then she heard her husband's voice again. All right, there's no need to be upset. It's a little hiccup, but the lizard will stop at nothing. So it won't be long now. Maybe he'll take her out at the hospital. Then I could spend the night at your place. No, just remember to be careful. There's got to be time between 2 assassination attempts. And then you and I will observe the rules of decorum. After all, I'll be an inconsolable widower. You're right, as always. But I know how to wait. Adriana was paralyzed with fear. She realized that her husband had made a deal with Lizard, the local drug lord. It turns out they had agreed to get Adriana out of the way so they could sell drugs in their clubs in peace. And to remove it in a physical sense, the fire at the country house was no accident. If Adriana had taken her sleeping pills that day, today would be her funeral. Adriana knew that the lizard was a horrible man who was the subject of terrible rumors in town. And if he decided to kill her, then she was already dead. What was there to do? How'd we save ourselves? Adriana's mind was racing. She couldn't think of anything, but she realized that she couldn't let it be known that she had heard Michael and Betty's conversation. Otherwise, she wouldn't have much longer to live. She decided to pretend to be asleep until the last possible moment. Luckily, Michael came into the bedroom. Alone. I'm going to change my shirt, he said. Betty, seeing his supposedly sleeping wife in the bed, The man crept away and returned to the living room. With signs, he showed Betty that Adriana was in the bedroom and she needed to leave immediately. Half an hour later, Adriana pretended to wake up. During this time, she decided what she should do. Under no circumstances pretend to know anything and go to her mother and stepmother's house. They'll help her there. "Michael, are you home?" She called her husband. "Yes, darling." Michael immediately appeared on the threshold of the bedroom. Adriana thought he was watching her face carefully. Could his wife have heard something? But Adriana's face was completely serene. Who knew what it had cost her? I slept so well. But I'm still very weak, Adriana complained. So why did you run away from the hospital then? Michael smiled. I didn't want to be there. I'm bored there. I think that maybe I should go to my mom to change the situation. Let's go together for a couple of days. A shadow of displeasure slid across Michael's face. He needed Adriana to stay here in the city. Well, I don't know, whatever your condition, but I'm definitely not going. I've got a lot of work to do. Well, on my own then, just for a little while. You don't mind? No, of course not, unless it's just for a little while. Darling. Michael leaned over and kissed his wife, Adriana, nearly vomited from his kisses and hypocrisy. But she didn't show it. When Adriana arrived at her mother and stepmother's house and told them everything, they were just horrified. Mom, who always liked Michael, just could not believe in his meanness and duplicity. But stepfather Ethan, a man with a rich life experience, said, Well, Adriana, your Michael always seemed like a double-bottomed man to me. Then he was always hanging around your family, always coming to your house. In fact, she tried to make eyes at me a while back. But she quickly realized I wasn't the one. I didn't say anything to upset you and Mom. I wish you'd said something then, Ethan. Adriana grinned sadly. As it is, I've got a real snake on my chest. I can't believe she'd hate me so much and want me dead. Adriana cried. Yeah, now we need to think about how to keep you safe from that lizard. Scary man. He'll find you everywhere. Maybe even overseas. I don't know how long his arms are, but I don't want to take any chances. We'll do it like this. A week later, Adriana and her mom went skiing in the mountains. A few more days later, Adriana's mom called Michael to inform him that his wife was missing in the mountains. A small avalanche had come down and Adriana had driven onto a dangerous, closed trail at the time. There was likely no way to save her. No body has been found yet, but her glasses and cap have been recovered. Michael seemed to be simply in shock. He could not believe in an accident with his beloved wife. The very next day, the supposedly grief-stricken husband rushed to the mountains. The horror story was confirmed by the resort staff. Ethan had made arrangements with everyone in advance, so Adriana's disappearance was staged competently. In fact, Adriana had gone straight from the resort to the capital. In a huge city where there were hardly any acquaintances, it was easy to get lost. Just in case, the woman tried to go out less often. She cut her long blonde hair and dyed it dark brown. Adriana's mother also played her part diligently. She had traveled to her hometown and picked up photos and some of her daughter's personal belongings. Michael met his mother-in-law with open arms, continuing to pretend to be a grief-stricken widower. In reality, he was celebrating victory. In all 3 clubs, he had gotten the drug trade off the ground. The money was pouring in. Betty was rejoicing too as Michael showered her with expensive gifts. Fur coats, exclusive jewelry, a fancy new car. The couple had already made plans to open clubs in the neighboring region. Michael was only waiting for the legal deadline. Soon Adriana could be declared dead, and then he would get his paws on the entire business and all their property. Only he didn't yet know what disappointment awaited him in the future. Adriana's stepfather found out that Lizard's gang was already in development and the local police was all bought by him. But the outlaw had recently gained interest in the capital. Ethan set Adriana up with a high-ranking member of the prosecutor's office. Adriana and Colonel William met in a cafe for a cup of coffee. A strong man with sad, attentive eyes. At first sight, he inspired confidence. Adriana knew from her stepfather that William's wife had died 5 years ago, and since then he had withdrawn into himself. Perhaps that's why his eyes are so sad. The woman thought, Adriana, Ethan told me a little about you. What a bastard your husband is. I've seen a lot of things in my years of service, but even I'm not comfortable. What do you think can be done in my situation? Adriana asked. I can't hide forever. Of course not. Yes, that bastard must be punished. Our guys are investigating the Lizard's gang, but there's hardly any evidence. We're going to infiltrate our people into your clubs, into the local authorities, and into the criminal group itself. I hope that in 6 months at the most, your husband and the Lizard and the whole gang will be behind bars. There's something I can do to help. Some information. Yeah, any information about your clubs, from floor plans to employees, would be helpful. And Adriana started talking. She and William met many more times. First for business and then just for fun. Before Adriana knew it, William had become close and dear to her. She thought she would never trust any man again after Michael's betrayal. But with William, her heart thawed. William also seemed to live in the company of Adriana, so sweet and gentle, strong and defenseless at the same time. And 6 months later, just as William had promised, Adriana walked into her office at one of the clubs. The police were already there, and Michael was hunched over in a chair. His hands were handcuffed, and now nothing threatened in his hometown. I believe all of his gang leaders were arrested at the same time as Michael, and the evidence against them all was overwhelming. When Michael saw his wife, he turned white and started gulping for air. Are you? How? I hope you don't think I'm a ghost. Adriana grinned wryly. She felt irresistible in her elegant white dress, her stiletto heels, and her beautifully styled hair, which she had already returned to its natural light color. Adriana walked over to her husband, leaned over, and looked into his eyes. Did you bury me early, hubby? But how? How? I went to the mountains myself, and there. You shouldn't think you're the smartest. Adriana shrugged her shoulders. She turned away from Michael. She wasn't interested in him anymore. Take this one away. William waved his hand. Of course, he was here with Adriana today, too. But then Betty burst into the office. What's going on here? Where's Michael? Oh my God. She looked at Adriana. Are you? Yes, dear friend. As you can see, alive and well. Aren't you glad? Pretending to be. Adriana was surprised. Betty turned to Michael. I told you, it couldn't have been so lucky that she died on her own. Something was wrong. Betty, shut up. It's sick without you, Michael muttered. You're sick. Did you know they busted my boy Liam with drugs? And he's only 16. He's a sportsman who doesn't drink anything stronger than tea. Yes, of course, grinned Colonel William. I don't know what he drinks. He'll go first to juvie, and then he'll go on to the zone. No, it's all you. It's your fault. Furious Betty rushed at Adriana like a fury. She was immediately grabbed by the cops. You want to talk? Let's go outside. Suddenly, Adriana said calmly. They went out into the corridor. In war, all means are good. Really? The friend grinned at Adriana. Yes, I know that your Liam is a good, not spoiled guy. But he was unlucky with his mother. With my connections in the law. Putting him away won't be a problem. Although I don't want to hurt the guy. It's up to you now. What you want from me? Just revenge. Betty squeezed through her tears. Yes and no. I want you out of the country forever. I can't put you in jail, since you're not officially involved in your husband's affairs. But I don't want to see you again. Not ever again. What about my ballet at my house? I don't care about that. Liam will only be released if you both leave here for good and hurry up with your packing. Adriana walked towards the exit, leaving Betty crying and wondering about her fate. William was already waiting for the woman outside. Well, justice has been served. You can fear nothing now. Your hubby and the lizard will go to jail for years to come," said William, hugging Adriana gently. "Yes, William, thank you. You helped me to punish those freaks. What are you going to do now? Are you going to keep running your club empire?" William asked with a faint sadness. "No, I'm done. I'll sell everything. Nightclubs aren't really my thing, but I would love to open a cozy restaurant in the capital." William brightened up. He took Adriana in his arms and kissed the restaurant. "That's a great idea, and I'll help you with everything. Remember, I'm always here for you."